The human mind detests an unbalanced scale. Evolutionary psychology has hardwired us to view unreciprocated favors as an unbearable social debt. When you demand something directly, you create resistance. But when you give first, unsolicited and without apparent expectation, you create an invisible psychological trap. Strategic indebtedness is the high-level discipline of manufacturing obligation. In this masterclass, discover how to convert unasked-for value into absolute leverage, trade minor gifts for major compliance, and turn reciprocity into your ultimate weapon. For thousands of years, survival depended on mutual aid, creating an automatic, subconscious drive to repay anyone who provides assistance. The unsolicited favor baseline weaponizes this evolutionary bias by delivering value before making a single demand. Crucially, the favor must be given unasked. Asking permission to help gives the target a chance to decline the obligation. When you proactively solve a minor problem, grant exclusive access, or deliver valuable information without being prompted, you bypass their conscious defenses, or deliver valuable information without being prompted. You bypass their conscious defenses, or deliver valuable information without being prompted. You bypass their conscious defenses, or deliver valuable information without being prompted. You bypass their conscious defenses, or deliver valuable information without being prompted. You bypass their conscious defenses. The target's ego enjoys the immediate benefit, but their subconscious registers a clear social debt. By establishing this baseline, you ensure that when you eventually present your actual request, the target views compliance not as a concession to you, but as a necessary step to clear their own psychological balance sheet. The human reciprocity mechanism is emotionally driven rather than mathematically precise. When people feel obligated to repay a favor, their primary drive is to eliminate the discomfort of being in debt, regardless of the relative cost. Asymmetric reciprocation is the deliberate practice of exchanging a low-cost, easy-to-provide initial favor for a massive, high-value strategic concession later on. You might offer a contact, share a helpful insight, or handle a minor logistical inconvenience, actions that require minimal effort or resource expenditure on your part. However, because the target perceives the gesture as an act of genuine goodwill, the psychological debt remains active. When you eventually make your true ask, such as exclusive deal terms, favorable pricing, or critical alignment, they grant it willingly. The imbalance is vast, yet their brain happily trades high material value just to buy back psychological peace. The altruism shield prevents this by clothing every strategic favor in absolute selflessness and casual indifference. You frame the value you are offering as an incidental byproduct of your normal operations. I happen to have an extra seat at the private dinner. Or, my team already compiled this intelligence, so you might as well use it. By presenting the gesture as effortless, non-transactional, and entirely motivated by mutual goodwill, you remove any reason for them to decline. They accept the value without suspicion, completely unaware that the obligation has been successfully planted. The altruism shield ensures the gift is swallowed whole, leaving the psychological hook firmly set beneath a polished surface of complete generosity. Negotiation is rarely about absolute victory on every point. It is about absolute victory on the points that truly matter. Strategic concession surrender is the art of intentionally yielding minor, low-stakes battles during a discussion to force the opponent to yield major strategic territory later. When you openly surrender a point you never actually cared about, you project fairness, flexibility, and humility. The opponent's brain registers your concession as a favor or a gift of ground due to the reciprocity rule. They now feel intense cognitive pressure to match your generosity. They feel compelled to make a concession of their own to avoid looking unreasonable or aggressive. By carefully orchestrating which small points you sacrifice, you construct an environment where the opponent willingly hands over high-value strategic priorities simply to reciprocate your manufactured flexibility. Amateurs attempt to create leverage during a negotiation. Master strategists construct leverage long before the parties ever sit down at the table. The preemptive obligation is a long-term tactical sequence where you deposit small, consistent acts of value into the target's ecosystem weeks or months in advance of your primary objective. You might quietly commend their work to industry figures, send curated assets that solve immediate operational friction, or introduce them to valuable contacts without asking for anything in return. Throughout this preconditioning phase, you maintain complete distance from any sales pitch or contractual request. You build a strong reputation as an empowering, high-value ally. By the time you finally enter a formal negotiation or propose a joint venture, the psychological debt is not a single point of leverage. It is a massive accumulated capital reserve. The target enters the room already conditioned to favor your perspective, view your terms through a lens of deep gratitude, and grant your key demands with virtually zero operational resistance. The ultimate expression of strategic indebtedness is transforming reciprocity from a simple social courtesy into a rigid ethical framework. The moral anchor is established when you consistently frame your relationship, favors, and support as part of a shared code of loyalty, trust, and professional honor. You do not merely give value, you accompany the value with explicit moral framing. In our circle, we always protect the people who build with us. By anchoring the favor within a moral standard, you elevate the psychological cost of non-reciprocation. If the opponent later attempts to walk away from a deal, renegotiate terms unfairly, or side with a competitor, they are not just making a tough business decision, they are actively violating a moral trust and exposing themselves as ungrateful, unprincipled actors. This deep fear of ethical hypocrisy and reputational guilt acts as a psychological lock. The opponent realizes that backing out or denying your request will severely damage their self-image and standing within the relationship. Facing the unbearable burden of moral compromise, they choose compliance, adhering to your terms to protect their ego and preserve their standing as an honorable partner. You hold total control, backed by an unshakable moral anchor they cannot break without destroying themselves.